Well, let's go.
He was the rebel with a cause, and his cause was rock and roll.
I am rock and roll, boy. Now, these other people are rock and roll, but I am rock and roll.
In 1957, he rocked and shocked the world by teaching teenagers everywhere to shake it.
I can see now where apparently it did stir up some kind of sexual behavior.
That makes you feel good inside.
But what Jerry Lee Lewis was really shaking was nothing less than the foundations of musical history.
Jerry Lee Lewis is one of the founding fathers of rock and roll.
And let's just face it, the cat is a music genius.
But less than a year after his sensational breakthrough, Jerry Lee Lewis's meteoric career was on the skids, when the world learned of his marriage to his 13-year-old second cousin.
And I said, Jerry, I'm too young for this. And he said, no, you're not. My sister got married when she was 12. I said, but I'm still too young for this. Let's wait a while. He said, no, we're not waiting. It's now or never.
His fall from the top was swift and brutal.
Yes, I was blacklisted, so to say. I was disbanded.
I've apologized to him over and over again for, caving along with the rest of the cowards.
But he wasn't called killer for nothing, and no boycott or personal tragedy was going to stop Jerry Lee Lewis.
He's got this tremendous spirit to survive, and he remains dignified, really, amongst all this tragedy.
Tonight on Behind the Music, Jerry Lee Lewis looks back on a rock and roll lifetime, from great balls of fire to middle-aged crazy.
I was really doing some crazy things, and I was running wild. I thought I was having a good time, but apparently I wasn't having quite a good time I thought I was having.
America in the 50s. It was a time the nation seemed as innocent as hula hoops and a day at the beach. Ike was in the White House, convertibles were tops, and father still knew best. But there was a revolution brewing, a revolution that would rock the world. And it all started with the sound that was rooted in the backwoods of the American South.
First time I heard Elvis Presley sing a song on the radio, me and my daddy was riding along in an old car he had, and I said, that's it, right there. I said, that somebody has finally opened the door. I knew that rock and roll was hatching its way out right there.
From the beginning, rock and roll broke through America's social and racial boundaries, threatened to change the rules forever. The response was quick. Rock was called the devil's music, and there was a concerted effort to wipe it out.
This rock and roll rhythm is filled with dynamite, and we don't want the dynamite to go off.
Rock and roll has got to go, and go it does.
But the music couldn't be stopped. And for a kid from rural Louisiana like Jerry Lee Lewis, rock and roll was anything but evil. It was his ticket to the life he dreamed of living.
Well, I wasn't really thinking of that much money, but I was thinking of getting out of Faraday, Louisiana, and going somewhere to a big city and getting a record out and buying me a new car and a nice home. I was sure thinking about that, yeah.
Not himself, he broke down those barriers of freedom. He wasn't contained by the establishment and is not to this day.
Those barriers may have never come down without the help of comedian Steve Allen. He was the first person who would put Jerry Lee on TV. It was July 1957.
He would get so excited playing, he would finally just have to rise to his feet and bang on the keys that way.
But here he is, jumping and joking, Jerry Lee Lewis.
Come on over, baby. Whole lot of shaking going on. Yeah, come on, baby.
But if Steve Allen was excited, it was nothing compared to the excitement back in Faraday, Louisiana.
We got the one TV, the round tube. Okay, I'm on the floor, Mom's in the chair, TV going.
Whole lot of shaking going on. Oh, shake, baby, shake. Shake, baby, shake.
You can hear this woman breathing. And Dad's saying, Elmo's saying, it's okay, Mamie, he's doing great. Wow, look at that boy.
Now let's go. Shake! Shake! Buddy, shake!
The reaction to the show was immediate and explosive. Jerry Lee Lewis quite literally became an overnight sensation.
Whole lot of shake going on.
It wasn't 3 days later until every radio station in the world was playing a whole lot of shaking going on. Just the way it was recorded.
By the end of the summer of '57, Whole Lot of Shakin' was playing on radio stations and jukeboxes across the
stage to do your show, and you only had to walk out there and sit down and maybe do 30 seconds of a song, and you tore your clothes off, and the show was over.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
4 months after Steve Allen, Jerry Lee made Balls of Fire.
Because it was associated with a record in the rock and roll era that was trying to be refused by so many people, it gave it a bad connotation. There was only one kind of balls. I know baseballs, footballs, basket. You know, honest, but you know what I'm talking about, really.
But Jerry Lee swears it took him a while to figure out what all the fuss was about.
And it never dawned on me that people was thinking in that direction on a song. I can see now where apparently it did stir up some kind of sexual behavior, I don't know. But it wasn't running through my mind. Maybe that's why I had such a problem with my life down through the years getting straightened out. I didn't know what was going on.
Next, on Behind the Music, Jerry Lee's naivete would soon land him at the center of rock and roll's first scandal.
He lied and said I was 15. And the next day the news media came out, the newspapers came out and said, Jerry Lee Lewis is here with his child bride, but she's not 15, she's 13.
And no one, not even his family, could protect Jerry Lee from himself.
He just announced it. He said, Mother, I'm going to marry Ma.
Jerry Lee Lewis was born in Faraday, Louisiana, in the shadow of the Mississippi River on September 29, 1935. He first touched a piano at 5 years old. His cousin and childhood pal, Reverend Jimmy Swaggart, says by the time Jerry Lee was 8, everybody in the family knew he was a musical genius.
When we were kids, Jerry Lee had a voice. The range was, I've never heard anything like it. He would literally make chill bumps come out on your arms.
Jerry Lee's family was very poor. His father Elmo was a sharecropper and a bootlegger. His mother spent her days in the field picking cotton. But nothing was too good for their son. And when it became clear that Jerry Lee was musically gifted, they mortgaged their home to buy this upright piano. And it was Jerry Lee's mother who, in urging him to kill him with his piano playing, gave him his lifelong nickname, Killer.
But he played that thing so much until all the ivories were off of it, or most. And the keys were actually like an old swayback horse. I am serious.
Jerry Lee lived around the corner from a black juke joint named Haney's Big House. And night after night, Jerry heard the rhythm of the blues calling out to him just outside his door.
He had a fellow there, I'm trying to think, I think he was called Old Blind Sam or something like that. And that man could play a piano. He could literally just hold you spellbound. And Jerry Lee watched him many times and tried to get tips from him.
I'd sneak in there and hide and listen to the blues player, singing, and boogie-woogie rock and roll type blues, what I called it back then. And I used to sit for hours and listen to him when eventually he'd catch me and throw me out,
Young Jerry Lee and Jimmy started entering talent shows around their hometown, and they won every single one of them.
We'd play piano together at the same time at times, and Jerry Lee would sing or whatever the case, and we never lost a single solitary contest that we entered in. The crowd would go crazy. They would go out of their minds. They'd never heard anything quite like that,
Then that voice and the way he felt it, it instantly grabbed a hold of you.
Sam liked Jerry's demo of the song Crazy Arms so much that not only did he sign him up on the spot, he released it as is to a couple of local DJs.
I couldn't wait to hear it on the radio. I thought that would really be something. And I remember the first time I heard it on the radio, I was at my cousin's house, J.W. Brown. I said, man, that's me singing on the radio. That's fantastic.
That night also made a big impression on J.W.'s 12-year-old daughter, Myra.
And they started playing Crazy Arms. And I started screaming, and the whole family came because, my God, what's happening? And there was a look on Jerry's face that was just absolutely incredible. It was the happiest I have ever seen anyone in my whole life.
Unbeknownst to her, Myra was also making a big impression on Jerry Lee. At 21, he was already on his second marriage and had a young son. That didn't stop him from falling head over heels in love with his second cousin.
I had no idea that I was going to be marrying Jerry Lee Lewis, okay? Jerry had an idea that he was going to marry me. He did not ask me, he told me. I said, but I'm still too young for this, let's wait a while. And he said, no, you're not. My sister got married when she was 12.
Jerry Lee's impulsive move threw his entire family into turmoil. It was the only time his sister, Frankie Jean, can remember Jerry Lee going against his mother's wishes.
Mom says, oh, God, you can't do this. Don't do this. She says, if you do this, boy, you're going against God's teaching. You're going against God's law. If you do this, boy, you're in trouble.
But Jerry Lee couldn't be talked out of it. On December 12, 1957, 5 months after Myra's 13th birthday, she and Jerry Lee became husband and wife.
My father felt as if he had stolen his daughter because my parents were not asked, they were not consulted on this, and they would never have allowed this.
At first, no one knew about his marriage, and Jerry Lee's star soared even higher. His music led him to Hollywood, and with his good looks and blonde curls, he may well have beaten Elvis to movie stardom. But 7 months after they said I do, Jerry was booked on his first European tour. He was specifically asked not to bring Myra, but no one was ever going to tell Jerry Lee Lewis what to do.
Jerry was advised to keep our marriage a secret at first. I was not aware of this. They said to Jerry, please leave Myra at home. And he said, no, Myra goes, well, I don't go.
Jerry Lee prevailed, and off they went to England, where a seemingly harmless question from a reporter turned Jerry Lee Lewis's world upside down.
He says, who are you? I said, I'm Jerry's sister.
And he said, and who are you? And I said, well, I'm Jerry's, blah.
And I'm punching Myra the whole time, you know.
And I tried not to say wife, and he said, who are you, please?
But what good is he going to do to punch anyone at this point? She's got to tell him who she is.
And I said, I'm Jerry's wife. And he said, oh, tell me more.
I come to England, I stepped off that plane, they said, who is this little girl? I said, this is my wife. They said, and I married her before I even got a divorce from the last one. They said, what?
Darling, let me tell you, when the crap hit the big machine, this was one of the saddest days in a lot of people's lives.
For the next 3 days, the scandal was front page.
He was very upset that they were attacking him.
He was hounded, blasted out of town. There was no way for him to understand how all of a sudden his whole world is blown up, literally, right before his eyes.
A shell-shocked Jerry held a press conference when he landed in New York. He and Myra tried to put a good face on their troubles.
Jerry, what about this reception in London? Can you tell us about that?
Yes, sir. We had a very good reception, sir.
When were you married?
Pardon?
When were you married?
Well, we leave our personal questions out of this, sir.
But Jerry Lee learned very quickly that the uproar had already spread to America. Next, on Behind the Music, the killer finds himself a true rock and roll outlaw.
Jerry would faithfully go to the studio and record music, and they would release it, and the DJs would throw it straight in the garbage.
But Jerry Lee Lewis's hard luck troubles were just beginning.
He's experienced immense tragedy, more tragedy than Shakespeare and Tennessee Williams could conceive.
I've always been a very strong person, always. Determined, strong person. When I was young, I was very strong. And I'm still a very strong man. But it rips something out of you every time you pass a coffin. It has to, and it takes a toll on you.
I'm on fire!
Jerry Lee Lewis was a rock and roll superstar when he left for England in May 1958. But 3 days later, after the revelations about his marriage to his 13-year-old cousin Myra, Jerry Lee returned home to a deafening silence.
I had no airplay on the radio. I couldn't see anything I did wrong.
And Jerry's records were pulled from the stations. He was blacklisted. He could not do a TV show. He was bad news. No one would touch him.
And the climate and everything was such that, in essence, there was a boycott of Jerry Lee, really.
Jerry Lee was so depressed and so down, it was like his world had fallen.
Even close friends like Dick Clark were pressured to stay clear of Jerry Lee Lewis.
That's the part I'm never proud of. Had I been more mature, I was, I think, 27 years old. Had I been living in a 90s atmosphere, I never would have let that happen. I've apologized to him over and over again for, caving along with the rest of the cowards. It was very cowardly.
I'm sure that Dick probably had the pressures and had to do it, but it had been left up to him solely. I am certain that he would not have deserted his friend Jerry Lee Lewis.
It was an unbelievably steep fall from grace. Just weeks after being at rock and roll's heights, Jerry Lee Lewis was cast out. Many people thought his career was over.
It was a terrible thing. If you can imagine Michelangelo or Mozart or some of the great composers being stopped, say Mozart was stopped at the age of 14 to 20 or 24, it would have been the most horrific thing for any musical genius. And I think what they did to Jerry Lee was unforgivable.
There was a good reason why Jerry Lee didn't understand what had happened to him. In the South, in the 50s, his behavior wasn't considered that unusual.
It's not unusual at all. I was married when I was in England. I was a ripe old age of 12.
It wasn't unusual to marry a cousin, and she was young, but you married young, so no, it wasn't unusual, and they happened to love each other.
She was very mature for her age, and that's not just a cop-out. She really was.
The reaction to the scandal was immediate. Jerry Lee had followed up his hits Whole Lotta Shakin' and Great Balls of Fire with Breathless and High School Confidential. High School Confidential was number 22 in climbing before he went to England.
Everybody rocking,
4 weeks after the scandal broke, it dropped off the charts.
His record sales went from just phenomenal down to practically nothing.
Jerry Lee's big ticket bookings stopped, and he found himself once again playing in small clubs and bars. Most people might have been bitter about that turn of events, but not Jerry Lee.
He went from $10,000 a night to about $300 a night. But the thing about Jerry Lee, he says he's not worried about money, and he just wanted to play. His priority is music.
I'm not a businessman. I've got no money. I ain't got enough sense to keep a dollar bill. But there's a lot of folks that do have, and I thank God that they do. I would have never made it. I just play piano and sing my song. That's it. The rest of it, I'm just a dumb, old country boy trying to make a living.
The scandal continued to haunt Jerry Lee for 4 long years. In April 1962, he was about to fulfill a promise he had made to himself, a promise to go back to England and complete the tour that had ended so abruptly.
I was excited about it. I wanted to go back and straighten this out, and finish my tour.
But a week before Jerry Lee was scheduled to leave, his world was rocked by the tragic drowning of his 3-year-old son, Steve Allen, named after the talk show host who had changed his life.
Then we heard the terrible news that his son, Steve Allen, was drowned in the swimming pool, and that was shocking. We thought that we'd never see the poor fella again.
The tour promoters wouldn't let him cancel. And not for the last time, the killer found the best way to overcome tragedy was to play his heart out on stage.
He makes the biggest comeback. He makes the most fantastic effort. This time he's making an effort. He's smiling, he's being nice, he's still got the get up and go, he's still the killer.
He stood at the side of the stage and he ran for about 5 yards, landed on his knees, slid another 20 yards and hit the Steinways. Well, of course, we'd never seen anything like it.
My fans were right there loyal as they could be, man. They were jam-packed out, and it was a great tour.
Triumphant, Jerry had finally won England over, but his timing couldn't have been worse.
Thank you very, very much.
Just as he was finding his audience, Jerry Lee was knocked down again by the musical tidal wave called the Beatles.
They were good, the songs were good, and they were rock and roll. And they were kicking now. I mean, they wasn't exactly kicking into my kind of music, but or Elvis's kind of music. But it disturbed Elvis very bad. He was upset about it.
In 1962, Jerry Lee got the chance to meet the Beatles in England. Ironically, the Fab Four said it was the Killer that inspired them to become musicians.
John Lennon, when he actually met Jerry Lee, fell down and kissed his feet, and he said, if it wasn't for a whole lot of shaking going on, I would never enter the music business. And yet, in American consciousness, the Beatles are far more important than Jerry Lee.
In fact, by the mid-60s, Jerry Lee just about disappeared from the American consciousness. Up against the onslaught of the British invasion and the flower power generation, Jerry Lee Lewis was out of style. But home with Myra and their baby daughter Phoebe, it turned out to be one of the best times of his life.
It was almost like Disneyland type of living, because we had a swimming pool and we'd swim and jump off the diving board and duck each other and just play like kids.
It hasn't been a very regular life, and I'm glad. I have had fun. Being around my house is really entertaining, and I wouldn't trade it for a Leave It to Beaver kind of thing for nothing.
And while the headlines about his marriage to Myra may have crushed Jerry Lee's career, their incredible love for each other stayed strong long after the furor died away.
I remember showing Jerry's, when I was doing the book, showing him a photograph of himself and Myra, which is in the book. And he said, that's a lovely photograph of two people in love. Yeah, they were in love. I mean, love is an impossible factor. It's the inexplicable factor. I think if you're in love with a gal, you don't give a damn what society or the world thinks.
Jerry Lee continued making records throughout the 60s. He recorded 12 albums and released an astounding 30 songs. No one seemed to care. But Jerry Lee Lewis never doubted that he would get back to the top, and neither did his #1 fan, his mother Mamie.
She was the powerhouse behind the throne. She said, don't worry, Jerry, you've got it. You still got this immense talent. Go out there. Don't let him get you down. And he was tenacious as a barnacle on the bottom of the Titanic.
From 1958 until 1968, Jerry would faithfully go to the studio and record music, and they would release it, and the DJs would throw it straight in the garbage. He'd come home with a little demo record. He'd play it, and he'd stand there and he'd listen to it, and he'd say, baby, if that's not a hit, I'm going to quit. And he did that year after year after year for 10 years.
We're just going through the motion of the parts we've learned to play.
In January of 1968, Jerry Lee finally had another big hit. He went back to his roots, drawing on his boyhood favorites Gene Autry and Hank Williams. Jerry Lee Lewis went country.
Sneaked in the back door with an old song called Another Place, Another Time. It went #1 in the country field of music.
With that #1 hit, Jerry Lee became one of the first artists to successfully cross over from rock to country.
Another place, another time.
He followed up Another Place, Another Time with another smash country hit. What made Milwaukee famous made a loser out of me. Jerry Lee Lewis had made it back, but just like the first time around, he was unprepared for the way fame would change him. Just when everything looked like it was going right, it all began to unravel.
All of a sudden, everybody rallied around and started slapping him on the back, saying, hey, Killer, we're glad you're here, we loved you. And he's thinking, you loved me? Where were you when the lean years were here? Where were you when I needed you? And this is when the anger surfaced. And a person will take out their anger on the one that they think will love them in spite of what they do to them.
Next, on Behind the Music, Jerry Lee's marriage falls apart. And Jerry Lee Lewis gets the middle-aged crazies.
I thought I had everything under control. I was all filed up.
And later,
all he wants is his kids, his family, and peace. He wants peace.
Jerry Lee Lewis finds renewed happiness when Behind the Music continues.
Ladies and gentlemen, the killer, Mr. Jerry Lee Lewis.
By the early 70s, Jerry Lee Lewis was a bona fide country star, but the innocent, optimistic, and playful Jerry Lee was gone. In his place was a man that partied hard and lived harder, a man who answered to the name of Killer. On stage, it was exactly what Jerry Lee's fans wanted.
Thus is the image presented. Jerry Lee the Killer is coming to town. People want to go out there and see a guy tearing a piano apart, drinking bottles of Jack Daniels, smoking Cuban cigars, grabbing hold of some tart in the audience. That's what they go to see the Killer for.
Hey, good time, dude.
Got all these people surrounding you, making you think you're having a good time, you know. All these crazy dancers dancing on tables and stuff like that. And, you know, it just gets out of control before you know it.
But offstage, the Killer was increasingly difficult to live with.
Jerry could handle the bad times. You see, in the bad times, people cling to each other and say, oh, we've got to fight this together. We'll stick together. We'll lick this thing some kind of way. And to have been at the bottom for 10 long years and know that you didn't deserve it, you lash out. You strike out at whatever is around you.
By 1971, Myra had taken all she could, and she left. They had been married 13 years, and she was 26 years old. Jerry Lee was crushed.
It took 12 years of my life to fight my way back. Just for the love of a girl. And then she walked off. So I wonder, was it all really worth it?
There was just not enough happiness left there. There was so much misery. And
Jerry Lee started taking drugs to ease the pain. His affection for amphetamines and barbiturates, uppers and downers, dated back to his earliest days performing in clubs. But after Mamie's death, drugs and alcohol became an addiction.
Back in those days, you could get them easily. I mean, doctors would prescribe. All his stuff was prescribed stuff.
He'd taken drugs. I don't think he'd mind me saying that. He'll fess up to that.
And I won't deny that I did get into drugs. I tried drugs. I tried drugs like I tried whiskey. I tried it all. And it worked to a certain extent, but in the end of the ball game, it just didn't work.
By the mid-1970s, Jerry Lee's life had spun out of control. On September 29, 1976, his 41st birthday, while playing with a gun, Jerry Lee accidentally shot and wounded his bass player. And within the next 6 months, he was arrested twice for driving under the influence of drugs. Jerry Lee Lewis, the man with almost unlimited talent and potential, was at the point of losing it all.
Well, I didn't know I was at that point. I didn't think I would. I thought I was doing really right. I thought I had everything under control. I was all fouled up.
Controversy and tragedy continued to haunt Jerry Lee. His firstborn son, Jerry Jr., died in a car accident in 1973 when he was 19. His fourth wife, Jaron Pate, who he was married to for 11 years, accidentally drowned in 1982 while Jerry was on the road. By the time his fifth wife, Shawn, overdosed on prescription drugs, it was almost more than you could expect any one man to bear.
Well, I had a lot of tragedy in my life, which I'm sure everybody does, you know. And it's something we never think about until it happens. How would we react, or how would we accept losing a member of our family, or our mother, or our father, or our son, or our daughter, or somebody? But you don't understand anything like it, and you don't know how to accept anything like that until you do it, and it happens to you.
he has suffered many losses. He has paid a very, very dear price for where he is now, which is, it's not where he is, it's what he's been through. It's what he has seen. He has lost everything in the world that means anything to him, except for his talent.
Drugs, whiskey don't work. Only thing that really works is the real God-given talent. And if you do that right, I think the people are going to know.
I think working the stage was his therapy. Work, hard work.
Through it all, Jerry kept banging on his piano, channeling his sorrow and anguish into some of the most electrifying performances of his career.
You could go and see Jerry Lee after all this tragedy, and when he came on stage, he put on a marvelous show.
On stage, he was in control, but off stage, he was continually barraged by reporters who liked to harp on Jerry Lee's troubles.
They misquote everything, they change everything up you say, even if you put it on tape, they redo it, they change it all up, and they say something in a different way than what you said, and it's all a bunch of lies and a bunch of junk.
Never once did they say how marvelous his music was. They always went on about his wife and his divorces and his drinking habits and the tragedy, but they never, ever talked about the most important thing, which was Jerry Lee's great musical genius, his gift to us.
I am what I am. I'm not a hypocritical person, and this could very well have been a lot of my downfall through life. I don't know. But man, I can't hide nothing from nobody. I'll lie to somebody about something.
But Jerry had a more formidable enemy than the press, the IRS. After a lengthy audit, he lost a court case, and the judge ruled that he owed them more than $3 million in back taxes.
He called me a thief and said I still owe the IRS $3 million. Not in really owing it, but the interest and the penalties.
That's right. Yeah.
The interest and the penalties that I was guilty of $3 million. I said, my God, what a nut.
Jerry Lee's fight with the IRS dragged on for 7 long years. It was finally settled in 1984, when Jerry was found not guilty of tax evasion. Ultimately, he paid about $650,000 in back taxes.
I went into the IRS office and the lady said, "What do you want?" I said, "The Jerry Lee tax file." She said, "Oh no, please, no, we can take us days to lift it out."
But Jerry Lee's problems weren't over. During his emotional struggle with the tax man, he started having horrible stomach pains. After years of living on the edge, Jerry Lee's body had rebelled, and he found himself fighting for his life.
He lost three quarters of his stomach, yes. He lost 3/4 of his stomach with ulcers, which I would say were drug and booze induced. Yes, he nearly lost his life. He was within an hour of death, actually. They called his family to the hospital, and he nearly lost his life.
Jerry Lee survived, but it would take another 5 years before he found his reason to live. After a life stalked by tragedy, Jerry Lee Lewis, happy at last.
Well, I think it saved my life, really. It's if I'd have kept going the way I was going, I'm sure I'd be dead by now.
When Behind the Music continues.
I asked you, Jerry, would you take this woman?
Weddings are always new beginnings, and on a sunny April day in 1984, Jerry Lee Lewis started over for the 6th time.
You only know her so long as you both shall live.
I will.
His bride was 22-year-old Carrie McCarver. They've been married for 13 years now, and Carrie says that underneath Jerry Lee's rough exterior, she found a heart of gold.
The real Jerry Lee Lewis, I would have to say, is sincere, warm-hearted. I mean, he would give you his last penny or his car if you didn't have one and walk out in the rain to get home. I mean, that's Jerry Lee Lewis.
Jerry Lee's remarkable turnaround really started with the birth of his 3rd son, Lee Lewis, in 1986. Becoming a father again brought new hope and new life to the killer.
Well, I think it saved my life, really. Oh, it straightened me up big time. It sure did. It had an effect on me that it stopped. It put me on a stop sign. You love me?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good enough for me.
Yeah.
Today, little Lee is 11 years old and a reminder to Jerry Lee of what he has and what he's lost.
It's a whole lot like having Junior back, like a son that I lost, you know, like watching him grow up again, a baby, you know, and brought back a lot of memories of Junior and everything growing up. And we've just been very close.
Yeah, having a new baby around the house, And then they adopted another little boy. So we have two youngsters running around the house. And he loves it. I think he wants more.
I always thought I had a good heart, yeah. Yeah, I don't think now it would surprise people that much, because I've always tried to be good to people and stand by people. I've tried to help people as much as I can, especially my family.
Jerry Lee's helping his daughter Phoebe launch her own country music career. She's just finished her first CD called River Road.
I've got my own hell to raise.
Jerry Lee Lewis still raises a little hell now and then. But at 62, after a lifetime on the road, he likes being home at his 80-acre ranch in Nesbitt, Mississippi. He still tours all year long and keeps connected to his lifelong fans through a 1-900 Jerry Lee info line. Fans can also tour the Jerry Lee Lewis Ranch for $15, which includes his vintage car collection. For the time being, though, when it comes to the Killer's music, fans have to be content with their old records. It's been a long time since rock and roll legend Jerry Lee Lewis set foot inside a recording studio.
And I would like to get back into the studio with the right musicians and put down a good album. I'm a good voice, I'm playing the piano like I should play it, doing good shows, and everything's going real good.
To know him is to know a great man, musically and in his soul.
Jerry Lee has taken on the world with him and says, okay, come along. I'm going to show you a good time because I feel you as much as I hope and I believe you feel me.
My pleasure to bring out now one of my all-time heroes, the one, the only, the man that doesn't play rock and roll, he is rock and roll, Jerry Lee Lewis.
In 1995, Jerry Lee Lewis was honored at the grand opening of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland. After 40 years of making music, and as one of the first inductees into the Hall of Fame, Jerry Lee has become a living embodiment of the music he helped create.
I would love to do a song for you that we recorded back in about 1957.
From the most humble roots to rock's highs and lows, Jerry Lee Lewis's life is the story of heartache, determination, and rock and roll. And he still has a whole lot of shaking going on.
Oh, baby.